Hello and welcome to Corner Comics, episode number 10. This is your weekly comic book reading club. My friends and I get together, we share some books, we talk about those books. I'm joined by Emmanuel. You're back.
I am
How you feeling, man?
feeling good.
And his internet's a little choppy
How's
there.
that? Oh, feeling good. Feeling great.
Awesome. And also joined by Russ. How you doing this Saturday morning?
Ready to kick off this new decade of living at a higher level than ever before.
Indeed. Gentlemen, do you want to let everybody know where they can find you on the interwebs?
Sure, I'll go first. I am at Walrus on Twitter. You can find me at blacksuperherofan.com and comiccreatorsofcolor.com. Just pop in whenever you like.
Oh, I don't really have a moniker. I am just Emmanuel. So you can catch me on the gram, as the young folks say. Um,
The IG?
yeah, the IG. I think it's broken up though. It's not EMMAN. It's weird. EM_man underscore YOU_EL. Just trying to make things difficult for
You
those
young
who can.
people, and you're just refusing to spell
Why
things
make it
correctly.
easy? Why make it easy? And
Why is
then
it on the
the whole
web if it's not for people to find you?
the whole aspect of Kal-El, Emmanuel, the House
Ah,
of
no.
L. Come on, come on.
Okay. I can respect that choice.
All
I
right.
hear behind that.
So we've got 6 issues this week. We've got a bit of a theme, I guess, a bookend, if you will. I'll run down my 2 issues, then I'll pass it to Russ to give his 2 issues, and then Russ can pass it to Emmanuel to do his 2 issues. My first issue of the week is Spider-Man number 3. This is the current run, the miniseries that's going on. It's 3 of 5, and this is the one that's being written by J.J. Abrams. And my second issue of the week is All New X-Men number 35. That was the one that came out in 2015, if I'm not mistaken, which is a Bendis book. Russ, your 2 picks?
I chose Hardcore Reloaded, which I believe is an Image book. And there was an original Hardcore series. This is the new series. And I also chose Excellence, which is also a new series. I don't know if it's Image or not. I have to go look at it again. Uh,
Yeah, both yours are
and
Skybound.
Yeah, there we go. So, and I love both of these books. I love both of the main characters also, and we'll get into that. Uh, Emmanuel, Emmanuel.
I have chosen two kind of obscure comic book companies. There's a small comic book company by the name of DC. They have they have Batman Volume 3, which is number 36 of the third volume. And then my second pick was another small time comic book company, Marvel. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Hmm.
Amazing Spider-Man number 39. This is the one that came out in 1999, volume one.
All right. So go ahead and transition so everybody can see the covers as we talk about the books. All right, we'll just jump into it. We'll start with my book. First one, Spider-Man number 3. Now, I chose this book because I was pleasantly surprised by the second issue. So I picked up the first one and I thought, J.J. Abrams writing Spider-Man, really? I gotta buy it because it's a number 1 issue and it's Spider-Man and it's J.J. Abrams. Picked it up, was like, okay, this isn't too bad. There's only 5 issues in the series. Let me see what number 2 brings. Number 2 wasn't too bad, and number 3 is where I feel it gets the most interesting. So essentially, what is going on in the JJ Spider Verse? Spider-Man is a full-grown or middle-aged adult. He has a child named Ben Parker, and we find out that Ben has somehow inherited Peter's abilities through birth. And so this is sort of Ben Parker's story of becoming Spider-Man. And so this is 3 of 5. And yeah, like I said, J.J. Abrams wrote it. Sarah Pichelli, who's done quite a few books that I like, Guardians of the Galaxy, X-Men. She's doing the art in this. I think she did a pretty good job. What are your thoughts, gentlemen? Whoever wants to go
Sarah
first.
Pichelli, she actually did a run with Miles Morales when he first came out.
Yep.
And I fell in love with him in that. So Sarah Pichelli, in my book, can do no wrong. The artist for this, it looks as if Peter Parker is by Keanu Reeves. I don't know if you made that comparison, but he looks kind of just down and sad Keanu, by the way. There's a meme going on where sad Keanu, yeah, he looks like sad Keanu. I like the father-son dynamic in that Peter Parker isn't this perfect human being. He's flawed. He's not a good father. I really like the juxtaposition because Peter Parker is always the one who comes out on top and always does the right thing because of his internal dialogue. But here, in this universe, not so much.
Okay. Didn't really know Sarah Pichelli specifically, not someone that I knew to watch out for. The art is nice. I like her style. I'm not a fan so much as the backgrounds. They seem a little sparse to me, but beyond that, very easy to see. This does look, Peter Parker does look like a sad Keanu. I did notice that. I've always felt that Peter Parker has always been a poor member of his own family. He saves the world, but anyone related or connected to him has a sucky life and how it relates to him. I feel like that's kind of a theme with him, and his son in this particular universe is no different. There's no happy people in this book, except for the weird girl who's following Ben Parker around, who's just loving every minute of this journey. No powers, just there to be just plucky, I guess. But she is there for Ben, and that's nice. I'm always a sucker for a good alternate universe or alternate storytelling. Riri Williams was interesting to see her there and not in armor. I like that I don't know where the hell this is going. So that's always a good thing, just as long as you keep me interested to get there. And I will follow the book because I got to give J.J. Abrams a shot in writing because, there's a few other writers and directors that I follow that have done pretty good. So I will see where he goes with this and see if comic writing is his thing or not. And I'm sort of either way on it. So we're going to see how this unfolds. That's sort of my take.
I almost feel like this was his audition to write a script for Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know, I feel like a guy like that. Script rates for Marvel I think are $80 a page, something like that. So he got paid a couple $100. He probably didn't even notice it in his bank account when Marvel paid him to write this book. So I feel like that was one of the things that I was curious about. Because it's like, why would J.J. Abrams write a Spider-Man book if not just to play around in the universe and try to do some interesting things? I'll let you comment on that, Russ, and then also I'm curious what you guys think of old man hippie drunk Tony Stark.
Yes.
And whether or not that's JJ saying, "Hey, Downey Jr. can still do it."
I think obviously J.J. Abrams didn't do it for the money, but to have an opportunity, and I've seen some of the interviews with him about this book, to be a fan and then have the opportunity to write a character that you're a fan of in a mainstream book has value that doesn't equate to the economics.
Yeah.
So I can see why he would want to do it. Um, you know, I can see why Kevin Smith would want to do it. You know what I
Right.
mean? So it's just this has had this impact on you your whole life. I don't know a life without Spider-Man. You know what I mean? And then to be able to tell a story in that medium, the impact back for him has got to be amazing. Uh, but I'm not as wowed as I would like to be. But maybe
Okay.
if I continue, I will be. And I don't remember the last part you said about.
Tony Stark,
Yeah,
old man
I
hippie
think that
drunk.
this is just in line with Tony Stark. When Tony Stark is old, Tony Stark is a drunk person even without drinking. You know what I'm saying? He's silly. He says whatever he wants. He thinks he's the only one. It's like everyone else is vacationing in his mind, and he's the storyteller. That's
Right.
kind of, it's very. And then to see if you think of him as an old, forgetful dude, it's in alignment with the Tony Stark you would see,
Yeah.
right? Shame he's not the new Doctor Strange, but now that's scary. You think like, do you really want Tony Stark to be new Doctor Strange in the future? I don't know. So I think I won't say spot on, but I think it's certainly in alignment of what we've seen from Tony Stark lately. So I I think I will say this, as far as who the characters that I know are, Spider-Man, Peter Parker was acting like I expect Peter Parker would. The only person that's not acting like I thought they would is Riri Williams, but she's new enough, so who knows?
Yeah, and much more mature in this. Obviously, she's fully grown.
Yeah.
Since this takes place in the future. Yeah, I would say all of us are sort of avoiding some major spoilers because this is a newer book. There is some interesting things that happen in it that might take you by surprise and sort of carry you through the book. If anybody out there watching or listening to this is interested in picking it up, I would say he does. There's enough here that it's like, oh wow, okay.
Okay.
There's something I wanted to add about the Peter Parker Spider-Man situation. It's interesting in that in this universe, Spider-Man doesn't become this great superhero. I mean, maybe he was, but they don't reference it here. They in Spider-Man 2099, when he went back, he told Spider-Man that out of all the heroes, Captain America, Wolverine, like out of all the heroes, Spider-Man was the best of us, meaning like he was one of the greatest because of his drive, because of like, everything they had going on. And it's interesting to see in this future, in this universe, that doesn't seem to be the case. It seemed as if he was just in league with the rest of them, but he wasn't the best of them. He didn't like save the world in such an impactful way to where they built monuments and a museum, kind of like Flash. So
Is
I
this
like this world.
is this the only one that you've read out of the three that have come out, or have you read the other two? Because I think we talked about this
I've
before, right?
Yeah, I've read the other two.
Okay. I think so. I agree with you on the Peter Parker front and the way that his character is written here, but I do feel like this Keanu Parker
Mm-hmm.
is a little influenced by the backstory that we get in the first issue of him getting his
Right.
hand cut off and Mary Jane dying and all
Losing it.
that.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I wouldn't say that's really spoilers either because that kind of sets up the world that we're in,
Mhm.
this alternate future. But yeah, I feel like he's not the best of the superheroes in this alternate
Right.
timeline because like it sort of just gets cut off and stopped at that moment in time.
Yeah, it feels as if because Peter Parker already has a bad life anyway. Yes, his family is taking the brunt of it, but with Ben Parker dying, that propelled him to become this with great power comes great responsibility guy. And then with Mary Jane dying, someone that was even arguably even closer to him
Right.
than Ben Parker, he went the complete opposite way. Instead of taking on more responsibility, he just discounted his son, his real life responsibility. Some would argue his powers weren't really his responsibility. That was something done to him. But having a son, that is definitely his responsibility. And then,
Yeah, he shifts entirely towards what do I need to do to be just a normal everyday person and not be uh, not be that superhero that everybody thinks I am.
Right.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting.
Like the whole else worlds, what if this this take, I've said it before, but I really, really like this take. Having this model that we already see, this with great power comes great responsibility individual, and you take something out or you input something in, shake it up and see how the globe, I don't know why this globe analogy came to mind, but like see how the snow falls.
Yeah. All right. Russ stepped away for a minute. We were just sort of commenting on um, how this Peter Parker, this Keanu Parker, how his character's sort of changed by the death of Mary Jane in the first issue, and sort of how the death of Ben Parker changed him to become Spider-Man, and then how the death of Mary Jane forces him to become more Peter Parker again, and to get away from being Spider-Man.
Then what happened to the whole responsibility thing? Did he just like lose it?
Well, no.
That's what irks me. It's like I don't feel like I understand if you quit being Spider-Man, but is he doing something in the world that contributes? You know what I mean? I didn't really see that happening. So that's kind of disappointing to me. Is that this is still Peter Parker, and Peter Parker's supposed to have this strong streak ever since he would, you know what I'm saying, he first became Spider-Man, to put everything out of the way to save lives and all that. And I understand if you're hurt, but you know, Ben Parker grew all the way up to, you know, a teenager. So you got 15 years and you still moping. And where's his people? You know what I'm saying? Where's Miles to be like, step out of this, homie? You're supposed to be my hero.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I can see that. I think part of it is him not knowing how to deal with having a son as a single dad.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see how it ends. We'll go ahead and move on. I'm gonna go to my next pick of the week. All New X-Men 35. This is Brian Michael Bendis, art by Mohammed Assar. This is sort of in the middle of an arc, but the reason that I picked this particular comic was it has all of the things that my two friends here love. It's got Doom. It's got Miles Morales. It's got Bendis writing the story.
Yes.
I figured I could not do any wrong, and I might find an X book that Emmanuel likes, and finally find an issue where he can be like, yes, I love the X-Men now. I'm not sure if
I
I
wouldn't go so far
succeeded.
as to say I love the X-Men. Continue.
All right. So my take is this. I like the cast. You know, I agree. Everybody in there, I like. No, outside of this book, I like them going in.
Okay.
All right. It was an interesting adventure. Apparently, you know, obviously it's the Ultimate Universe, so it's not the Doom that I know and love.
Right.
But it's still Doom. And you know, it's X-Men action. I feel like Miles Morales was kind of just there. There were no quips because you know Miles Morales quips, right? He got a bit of a mouth. You see him in his own book. He's not Peter Parker level quipping, but he got some jabs, you know what I mean, kind of regularly, you know. And I didn't feel I'm like, and I know you got a lot of people to write for. There's like 57 people in this book. You know, everyone's a mutant except for Miles, and so you got to deal with that. But I felt like Miles Morales the character kind of phoned it in to some degree.
Okay.
But he was still doing some spider physical action. I was not a fan of the art. I felt like the detail wasn't there. I think I've seen this person's art before. It's not terrible. You understand everything, you see what it is. There's nothing wrong with it, but it didn't wow me.
Okay.
And maybe, you know, some books are not supposed to. But there wasn't anything happen that I didn't see get visually. It made sense. The emotions were conveyed, all of that. So everything that needed to be done with the art was done. It was like a big pot of, let me put all the stuff that, my friends like, shake it up and see what we get. And this is what we got. And it's, I felt like it's a fun story, but not necessarily a memorable one.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Let me ask this:
Okay.
is this particular issue enough for you to go back and read the surrounding issues for the full arc?
I'm on the fence about it. I read the first issue in this arc. I remember reading it, and I didn't go follow through with the rest of them.
Okay.
So I can go either way. If it's a nice little collection at the bookstore, then I would sit down with a latte and go through it.
Okay.
Here's the thing for me. I think looking back, that's where my love for X-Men was the highest in Ultimate X-Men. This is year 1999, 98, 2000. And Doom with the hoof feet. Anyway, Doom with hooves. I like it. It works for me. It's really weird. It's really awkward. But the Ultimate Universe, I remember when Peter Parker, the Ultimate Spider-Man and Peter Parker visited X-Men. I really liked that run too. So this is kind of reminiscent of that, having Miles visit the X-Men. Granted, they're from two different worlds. They're the Ultimate X-Men and then another Earth's X-Men. They kind of come together, which is good. But that really reminded me of the last time that I really, really liked that writing of X-Men. I may be alone in that. There's not many people that I find really like Ultimate X-Men or Ultimate Universe after it died, but I actually liked this book. I wouldn't necessarily go so far as say it rekindled my love for X-Men, but I like this book and I read a few issues prior to kind of get a feel of what's going on. So, yeah.
Okay.
I love the Ultimate Universe.
Yeah, I do too.
I feel like the whole universe was Brian Michael Bendis' universe, pretty much.
Well,
A lot of it seems to be written the same, not necessarily in a bad way, but sort of how characters show up in that universe and things like that, and their reasoning and all of that. So I like the whole universe as a bookend. Like there was a collected Treasury edition of the Ultimate Universe, I would own that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Ultimate X-Men, it's 100 issues. It's self-contained, away from all other canon. I would say the first 24 or 25 issues is Mark Millar. Solid. I mean, he has him go through the Weapon X program. Every single one of the X-Men goes through the Weapon X program, and it changes them dramatically from the characters that we know and love. And yeah, I love the Ultimate Universe. So all right, well, it seems like this issue's not.
It's not bad. It's not a bad issue. I enjoyed it. It's just, how some of the books we read, there's like a couple panels or like, that thing that happened or that visual that happened really drew me in. That didn't really happen for me here.
Okay.
So, what I'm saying? Like that moment or that saying, so I was looking for that also. And like I said, it's not a bad book. If I bought it, I wouldn't be mad I bought it. But am I pedestaling it? I can't put it on a pedestal.
All right. I will work harder next week.
Oh man, bring what you like.
It's all about nostalgia for me, so you got a thumbs up for me.
There we go.
All right. Yeah, I don't really have much else to add. I really enjoyed this entire run with Bendis. I think he wrote all the issues from 1 till 40 or something like that, of this all new X-Men. This takes place right after the Avengers versus X-Men, so it's from the fallout from that, that was also Bendis, right? Avengers versus X-Men, if I'm not mistaken.
I want to say yes.
No. So yeah, but moving on, Russ, do you want to get into your first pick of the week?
The next issue I chose was Hardcore Reloaded. there was an original hardcore series, and the premise of that hardcore series, the Image comic, was that they could inject someone with nanobots, and then someone else could be in a sphere, electronically connected, and basically walk their body like a robot. They would walk and see through their eyes, but first you had to eject that person. So have to be a skilled person because you would have to be able to fight in that body. So it was like the ideal drone because now you're in the meeting as one of the dudes. You pass any whatever test, and you'll get to see and hear, and everything is recorded. And then in that original series, the first person who did it, the pilot, I guess, sort of got trapped in someone else's body, and then that whole series. I thought it was a great series, so I picked this up just on the strength of the original series. What I liked about this book was I felt like it had very much a sort of spy vibe, like I don't want to say Shield because Shield has but there's a secret cabal of agents working together for whatever, and I kind of like the spy action. Either of you care to comment?
Yeah, I'll start. So the entire time I was reading this, after I got to about the halfway or the end of the first third of the book is where it sort of picks up with the spy vibe. I kept playing in my head. Yes. I was like, okay, this is Bond, and then I couldn't stop that from playing in my head the rest of the time that I was reading it. Like the guy with the metal legs is just as goofy as the guy that throws the hat, and the artwork I was a little thrown back by. I didn't particularly care for some of the panels. I feel like the first third is a lot more detailed than the latter 2/3. And I don't know if that was a deadline issue with the artist, or if maybe he spent a lot of time on the first third of the book and then was like, oh crap, I need to finish this issue. But overall, I thought it was enjoyable. It was pretty good. I don't know that I'll continue reading the series, just because the whole spy aspect doesn't really. It's kind of whatever with me, I guess. The overall concept, but it was a fun ride. If I had the full this is going to be 5 issues if I'm not mistaken when it's all said and done, right? 5 or 6. If I had the full collected version, I would sit down and read it. But picking it up single issues, I wouldn't do.
I would say that most Skybound books are designed for you to read as a graphic novel.
Yeah.
Designed to ultimately become a movie.
Right.
So you get the whole thing. That's my take on everything Skybound.
Kirkman's building his media empire.
Yes, and I'm not mad at him.
Yeah.
And I also picked this because I like the writer, Brandon Thomas, and he's also the writer of my next book. So
we'll get
that's
into
one of the reasons.
We'll get into that for sure. Manuel?
I liked it because it seemed very, like as you guys said, spy, Mission Impossible-esque. That aspect really intrigued me. Now, the beginning kind of reminded me of a book that we reviewed before, Y: The Last Man. It has sort of that kind of feel, that exposition, that setting up the world. And then what really took me by surprise was the bloodiness of it. Like, I don't particularly like or dislike a comic because of that, but this one definitely added to it. It just seemed right. It seemed to fit. It wasn't gore for gore's sake. It was just like, this is what happened, and this is the visual of what happened. So I really appreciate that. Along with, we'll get into this later, the fact that it wasn't so word heavy. There are certain action panels where nothing is said. There's no quips. It's not even a, ugh. Like, it's just somebody fighting, somebody, you just see a foot go through somebody's face. You just see snow. Like, it's just all action and no dialogue, which I appreciate. It's not just dialogue for dialogue's sake. Things just seem to fit.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to follow it because, and of course, I would recommend the original series. And so I'm going to follow it for two reasons: the writer, and I like the premise. And I don't really get a lot of good spy books. And, I like to
Yeah,
sort of be off the beaten path. If I were to look and say, what's a good Marvel and DC spy book, unless it's a Shield book, that's kind of all you got. Or, maybe a Punisher book could go there, in its own way.
yeah. One thing I will point out, I don't know if this is all the time or just occasionally, or if it's maybe just my Barnes and Noble, but it seems like my Barnes and Noble always has in the graphic novels section, buy two get the third free with Marvel, DC, and Image. And the Image graphic novels are almost always cheaper than the Marvel and DC books, and they're like $10. So you can pick up three graphic novels for $20. Um, if that is true for Barnes and Nobles across the country, I would highly recommend,
I'll have to take a look.
yeah, checking that
Yeah,
out.
you know both.
Okay, so we're done with this one.
Yeah,
So we'll move on to my second book, which is Excellence. For me and my little local community, this had a lot of fanfare following it, both for the writer and the actor and the possibilities of it. I especially like in the beginning the rules of the universe are sort of stated. Like rule number one is this, rule number two, so you know what you're building. Uh, for me, it was sort of a mixture of, a little bit of Static, a little bit of, Harry Potter, a lot of little things that I like and other things sort of brought together with a very clear structure. But that's my take. What do you guys think?
Manuel, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. I like it. It's exactly what you said, like Harry Potter, Black Panther. I really like the fact that the main character is pretty much Michael B. Jordan. That is, if Peter Parker was Keanu, this is Michael B. Jordan, hands down. So this is really good in that it mixed some worlds together. And I really liked it. The fact that I didn't know this is what I wanted until I saw it. I didn't know like this to fill the kind of void. So it was really great, and the father-son dynamic was excellent. Really appreciated that. This is just a fun ride. I really like the magic, like you said before, the world set up. I liked it. I really, really liked the art. The art, doesn't really super stand out, but it's enough to be enjoyable. It's enough to really appreciate it. I like the facial features, the expressions, even when it comes to like magic and the action that happens, the way the art is set out. It's not too crisp, but it's not like all over the place and bleeding out as well.
Yeah, I was really surprised that this is the same writer because this book is so much better than the last one. And maybe it's because this is his own world that he's developing rather than him writing for another world that's already established. Um, but yeah, I was really impressed with the world building, and it is sort of science fantasy, but it's science urban fantasy. I've always liked like Shadowrun and stuff like that that sort of takes those fantasy elements and brings them into either the present or the near future. Um, Stylistically, I think it's really cool. I like that it sort of blends. Like their outfits and stuff are very martial arts themed, but also have like newer fashion trends mixed in with it. And yeah, overall, I thought it was a really good book. I like the setup with some of the characters, and for a first issue, it sort of sets up like the classic dynamics. Like, okay, these two characters are definitely going to go at it in the future. There's going to be um, it's not only his journey, which I forget the main character's name off the top of my head if you guys have it,
I
but
don't remember it either. It's been a while since I read it. It's just
Yeah, so it's sort of like his journey and coming of age, but right after the coming of age, right? Um, yeah, I thought it was really good. The artwork is fluid and clean. It has some interesting stylistic elements to it that don't make it look like other books. Um, the Harry Potter wands thing kind of threw me off a little bit, and I was like, that's a little corny, but it's okay because I like everything else that's surrounding it.
can't have it's magic. You gotta have some wine, something, right? Um, for me, like I said, this was sort of anticipated because I was ready for it. I also like that it's skybound, which means this is going to be ready packaged to be a movie or a
Oh,
TV show, and I could see that. You know what I mean? Especially when you already got it looking like Michael B. Jordan. Might as well bring him all the way in, right?
Right.
I like a lot of how the characters lean when they stood. There was a style to that I like. Everyone wasn't standing straight. People were really, you really felt dynamic and and even though you're taking an image of a moment, I felt that people had leans, women hips just a little to the side for no specific reason, things like that. I
it's got
enjoy.
movement. Yeah.
It's got it, yeah, it's definitely got movement. I felt like the emotions were conveyed well on the faces,
Yeah.
right? Like you can see when they're happy and they're sad. You can very clearly, it's almost like there's another level of dialogue in the faces sometimes, especially with the main character that's going on. That if you take a time to see that, you get more in the book. So this is definitely a series I'm following, and I highly recommend it to everyone if you're looking for something different. And if you like those, like you said, those three things that I said, Black Panther, Static, and what was the third one? Harry Potter, all in one. This is the one you're looking for. Maybe with a little bit of a sprinkle of Boondocks. Who knows, right? I was pleasantly surprised by this book, and I hope more people follow along with it.
All right. Moving on, Emmanuel. What's your first issue of the week?
All right. My first issue is Batman Volume 3, issue number 36, the 2018 version. Now, this is no action really. It's just really setting up. Well, actually, this is action, but it's setting up the dynamic between why these two, the main characters of Batman and Superman, how opposed they are, but how similar they are as well. This is in a universe where they're best friends, but they still hold secrets from each other. And they're kind of anticipating this double date, sort of Superman, and which is Clark Kent, and Lois Lane, and their double date with Bruce Wayne, which is Batman, and Selena Kyle. And why Selena Kyle is even in the picture. So it's really heavy on dialogue, and it's really heavy on exposition of the character, who those characters are. We already know they can punch, fight, and kick, but what is their motivation? Why are they even in these relationships, and what do those relationships do for them? Yeah.
So for me, it was like a V, like that. And the last page was where the V ended, like to Superman and Superman and Lois's dialogue going down the page, Bruce Wayne's and Selena's dialogue, and you could see a lot of the comparisons as you follow along the page. And then there was action wound about the V, so that they were actually doing something while they're having parallel dialogue that comes together out of the elevators in the last thing. I think that part of the craft of it I enjoyed. It seemed a little CW with all this, oh, he should talk to me first. He should. And that part, I was like, come on, these dudes aren't they grown yet? Right? Somebody's got to be, but I guess they not. It's like, especially Batman, you got to figure, look, I'm just going to call him and get this over with. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of, I wanted more there, but I enjoyed it. It wasn't as clear visually as I would have liked, but it was enjoyable. The poses and the action were there. Things were happening that I felt like I needed to see. The right people were kicking butt the right way, and the dialogue didn't get in the way, and they said everything they had to say. So I like the crafting of it as a story and as a comic. I think was pretty good here. Is it something I have to have in my collection? Maybe, maybe not. But as a one-of story, I felt like I got my money's worth on this.
Yeah, the I agree with Russ on a number of points. It's kind of interesting you're talking about like the V, how the story sort of comes to this singular point. So on the last page, there's a panel where Superman says, "Vengeance is the night?" Question mark, and then Batman goes, "Up, up and away." Like, oh, okay. That was a nice little touch.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a standard Superman Batman story. There's nothing super amazing about it. There's nothing that really like blows me away, but it's a fun ride. The artwork is really good. I'm not familiar with Clay Mann's work. It feels a little bit like he's kind of doing Capullo's Batman here, but I'd be willing to check out his other stuff. I enjoyed the way that the panels were set up and the way that he drew these characters. I'm curious about Selina Kyle's character. Maybe I have to check out the rest of what Tom King is writing. I don't know if he started this series in 2018 or if he jumped on.
He did. I think this was all his story. The
Okay.
whole bringing them together, bringing Catwoman into it, and then the whole, whatever did or didn't happen with them later on. I think this was all his arc.
He's still writing it, right? And
yeah,
aren't they up to like 86? Like
Yeah.
issue 86 or 87?
Well,
and
like it or hate it, it's causing buzz, right? So, and that is what you want somebody to do. It is shaking up the status quo.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things in the run. I was like, what the hell? But that was emotion.
Right.
Since Bendis has done his thing with Superboy, with John Kent,
Mhm.
this is the closest we can get to a real Super Friends. Now, let's start it between Damian Wayne and John Kent when they were still kids, both of them. Like, I really anticipated that being the Super Friends that I really, really wanted between Clark and Bruce. Now, Clark and Bruce never really got to the point to where they were essentially brothers fighting. They always were super friends. And this really tells that story. But I don't think we'll ever get a Damian and John story now that John is going out to, Legions. So this is something I really, really like. These two powerhouses and what motivates them beyond just fighting for what's right, their secret lives, their private lives.
When you talk about that, it's reminiscent of, and I'm going to go way back. Okay. There was a time when there was a Superman Jr. and a Batman Jr. They were in the comics, and they were grown, right? And they would be arguing over how they saw the world. Like Batman Jr. thinks like how Batman thinks. Like most people are evil, and we need somebody to knock them around to keep them in line. That Superman Jr. say we need to be positive and show hope and all of that. And then they were home. They were like always arguing, right? They had a whole series, and I was trying to find the book, and it wasn't called Super Sons, but if I look up Batman Jr. or something like that, it'll show up. But their dynamic, because they were best friends. You know how two best friends argue all the time, but they are homies to the end. So I love the Damian Wayne and John Kent dynamic, even though they messed it up now because they aged up John Kent, right? And so now he's like a lot taller, because it used to be that Batman Jr. was a little older and he was a teenager, and now there's a bigger gap. So I don't know how that's going to work. I've heard rumors that they're going to do away with all the main Justice League characters and replace them with other characters. So that the rumor that I heard is that John Kent will come back from the future even older and be Superman.
Well, this is all tied
And
to the Doomsday Clock stuff, right?
might be.
Yeah.
I heard that some other character, because they're not going to age up Damian, because that would ruin Damian. Some other character will be the new Batman. It won't be someone we think. So there'll be a different Wonder Woman. There'll be all the original characters will still exist, but out there in the world fighting, the main pantheon will all be replaced to give younger people new jumping on points with a new character and a new viewpoint. I don't really want another DC reboot, and I don't know if any of it's true. But it comes from a lot of different sources that within the next year or two, if maybe only one, they're going to restart, because we got to get new characters, because we're going to buy this stuff anyway, right? But if they want to grow the brand, they got to do something, because you know how much continuity it is just on X-Men alone.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's so much bloody continuity. That's one thing I liked about the original animated series, is that they weave through a lot of that continuity very well in that animated series. Talked about a lot of things. Oh, it's there. There is a picture. Let me see if I can find it. But yeah, there's anyway, there was a Bruce Wayne Jr. and a Clark Kent Jr. And you know, and they're fighting and arguing, and they just look like smaller versions of their fathers. And I'm going to try to find that so I can sort of show that to you. But a lot of it's World's Finest. I have World's Finest number 221 in February of probably 1962. And Batman and Superman are arguing with each other while their sons go out to fight evil. You know, it's the kind of thing you'd see back when Lois was always trying to prove that Clark Kent was Superman. It took place in that time.
This is another tangent. Just a quick question, though. Have either of you read Tom King's Miracle Man?
Yes, I read it last year.
No, I haven't.
I kind of feel like it's a must read, but it's its own thing.
Well, yeah.
Don't look for continuity in this. It is very deep. It has many levels, and it's its own thing. That's what made me want to read the Female Furies series.
Okay.
Because I was sort of inspired by that. I think that's a good read. It's just, in the end, did it change the status quo in the DC universe? No. It was like its own, and you really do need to read it as a graphic novel, because there's just a lot there. You really can't just read one issue. It's the thing you kind of need, I think, the whole story.
So I haven't gotten into any of his writing, but Miracle Man is one of those that's sort of been on my back catalog list to pick up and read because of how much buzz it got. And now he's getting a lot of buzz for this run of Batman. I'm curious to sort of dig into more of his writing.
I love me some good Miracle Man. That just felt like another Alan Moore kind of thing. Miracle Man, to me, was great. Miracle Man, because I always felt like I like Shazam better than Superman, right? I kind of always did. Right. You know what I mean? So Miracle Man was sort of a science take on Shazam.
Okay.
Right. Instead of the magic portion of it. And so now that Marvel has their own Shazam now in that way, because Miracle Man was now going to be Marvel Man. So I like it, but it was like Alan Moore was writing them. And I was like, oh shit. So not only do I have my Shazam, we got Alan Moore, and we deconstructed the fucking universe and all of this. And it was deep and it was murderous and all of those things I want in my comics. Because, I like a good murder. A little blood splattering. Doesn't have to be overly much, but a smattering of blood here and there. Someone loses a tooth. These are important for ambiance.
I like a good murder. Nice quote.
Thank you.
All right.
And go ahead. I'm sorry. Now I got another tangent just jumped in my head. Thory the Murder Dog. You need to find him wherever he is. Thory the Murder Dog is amazing. Have you seen anything with him in it? Have you read any?
Yeah, you brought this up before. Yeah, I've kind of read up on Thory.
Okay, Thori is great. Wherever you see him, you need to follow him. The way he talks, the stuff he talks about, and murder is just part of who he is. I smell a murder. I smell. I think a good murder would work here. Anyway, sorry, I got caught up.
All right. Any final comments on Batman number 36?
No.
All right, Manuel, what's your second and the final issue of the week?
All right. The final issue is Amazing Spider-Man number 39. This one is the first volume, the one in 1999. It sets up, well, to set this world up, this is, all right, Stan Lee has a few quotes, or had, the late, great Stan Lee, Excelsior. And one of the more famous ones was Enough Said. This series, this issue actually, is pretty much based off of that quote, Enough Said, and that nothing is spoken throughout this entire issue from any of the characters. Now, there is some text to be read, like some of the main characters, and this in circles, this talks about the characters that pretty much circle Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, the two main characters, Mary Jane and Aunt May. What's their life like? Even though the main character is Peter Parker, they have lives of their own. Mary Jane is a model in her own right, and it goes about her daily life without a word spoken, but she looks on television, she sees Peter Parker, she sees Spider-Man doing his thing, she goes about her acting career doing her thing. And an issue prior, which is issue, I want to say 38, this is 39, Mary, Aunt May actually finds out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. He doesn't know that she knows. So with all that going on, she has all of these emotions, these resentment, anger, betrayal, being lied to for all these years. And at this point in time, Peter Parker's an adult. He's a grown man. So he's been Spider-Man ever since he was a teenager. So she's been lied to for years and years upon years. And one of the important texts I find is her to-do list. And one of the things on her to-do list, again, not a word spoken, is forgive Peter for all the years of lying to her about where he's been, what he's doing, just the life he's living. So this to me was one of the most impactful comics I've ever read, because not a word spoken by any of the characters, but so much was conveyed.
Well, I like it for that reason. When I think of what it takes to write a book, to script a book with no words in it, for someone else to draw and
Right.
still get everything across, I think of the magnitude of that work, and I admire it. I have a love-hate relationship with John Romita Jr. though. Right? I don't like his art, yet I like the books that he draws. You know what I mean? Sort of, and I'm sort of stuck there. And he gets still gets the high-profile work, no matter what. But so the two things that stood out for me was the fact that I really got what was happening, that was all conveyed well, and someone designed it that way for me to get it. And they were able to do it even with John Romita Jr.'s art. There's a lot to me. All that was conveyed and put in the book, and you don't see it enough. Like, there is a skill here that should not be overlooked, to be able to make a book like this work and have impact. So I enjoyed that. Matt?
Yeah, it's funny because the act of sitting down and reading a comic book, at least for me, is a quiet activity. But this book feels oddly silent. Just reading it has this eerie quality to it as you're sort of going through the panels. You're like, there's no noise here. There's no, I really like John Romita Jr. So just throw that out there. I think his art is good. I don't think he's the best artist around, but he's unique in a way that it's that's definitely John Romita Jr. And he does enough with his art that services, the characters and the books that he is an artist for. Um, yeah, I did not read this run originally, so when this book came out, I had sort of fallen off of comic books, so I don't have the context surrounding this issue. I feel like this could have come out today though, and still had the same impact, just being that sort of silent, no dialogue, and I don't think that I've ever seen anything since. This has come out that's quite like that. So
it makes me think of what would an episode of a Spider-Man animated series be like where nobody talked? Could that even be done in animated form?
maybe, yeah, I don't know. Or could you have a segment of one of the movies be something like this, and would it be able to keep somebody's attention in the same way that a comic book does? I don't know.
I think that'd be one of the ultimate flexes that an artist can create in such a way to where it's completely silent. A silent film, as they used to do way back in the day. They still had text where they would talk and then kind of put it up on screen. They would say, but that would be the ultimate flex move if an artist can do something in the now modern media where it's completely silent but yet conveys as much emotion as a word film or a spoken film.
Yeah. I suppose there's not a whole lot to say beyond that, because there's no dialogue here.
The art and the flex, the characteristic flex of those.
Yeah.
But as we mentioned before, you said script writing is about $80 per page. So do you think the script writer just didn't get paid for this issue?
Oh no, the artist still has to know what to draw. It's still a collaboration.
Yeah,
right?
So each panel is probably described.
Yeah, it's not. They're not paid by dialogue. They're paid by the page. So if this has to be conveyed, and this person needs to be looking in this direction or having this attitude or whatever, the artist is supposed to do that based on the notes from the writer. So that's still, and so if it be in my head to write it in a way that this artist creates it to convey the thing that's in my head, that collaboration, that throughput is amazing.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too because of the way that they credit Michael Straczynski. It just says words. It doesn't say script or writer or yeah, so I'm interested to know what the story behind this was. Like, did John Romita Jr. and Michael Straczynski sit in a room together? Did they do this over the phone? How was that actually put together? Like, was it just a few notes on a page and they sort of worked out what the rest was going to be?
My thought is, I want a panel here. I want it conveying this.
Yeah.
Mary Jane is looking in the way, and so she's just getting out of bed and she looks thoughtful. Okay, I want a panel here that does this. I think that's what, and then you leave it to someone else to craft what you want them to do. I think that's how it works. Or like Mary Jane is walking by a window, and in the window, this is happening on her way to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Mary Jane in the bathroom is doing this. And then you can draw the front side, whatever you want, as interesting as you want to make that. And I think the artist looks at those words, and then he says, how should that look? And then he makes it look like that. I think that because sometimes they're not even in the same room, right? They're just the artist may just get the script, the notes, and it tells them how many panels, what should be on the panel, and then the artist can sort of fill it in as they like.
Right.
Which also says a lot to the artist. Go ahead.
In the spirit of saying some comic book characters look like real life actors, if you scroll down one of the last few panels, you see Spider-Man swinging throughout the city, New York Times or Times Square, and on a billboard, there's a picture of Mary Jane, and right below it says the Dow drops and everything, giving you stats. Mary Jane looks a lot like hate to speak ill of the dead, but the late Michael Jackson. So I've never put the two, Mary Jane and Michael Jackson, in the same kind of visual context before. But
I think that's just
I
bad
think
art by John Romita Jr.
that's coincidence. They just happen to have the same initials.
Yeah. I think if you had another artist, that would never happen.
No, Michael Jackson was looking pretty towards his last days. He was looking very feminine.
I hear you. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I just don't think that, if you'd have got another artist, we would have a whole different conversation.
All right.
I do remember the book before, though. I do remember when reading when Aunt May found out. And I do remember picking up issues here and there because I wasn't following anything regularly in which Aunt May was dealing with. I just don't remember this particular issue.
All right. So those are all of the issues that we have this week, gentlemen. Any final thoughts? Any other tangectories? Russ, you want to go on for a couple minutes?
Oh, sure. So I was looking at what is it that the Comixology?
Oh yeah.
Like I was looking like what's the Netflix of comics, right? Like is that a real thing? Can you really bring that together? And Comixology apparently doesn't have DC, is what I've been reading.
No, they have DC.
Because DC is only goes, or their newer stuff only goes to the streaming service. Like what I want is, I want to pay a monthly fee, and I want everything, just to read, not to own. Right? I know you can do that. Hey, you can just use some kind of Flash alternative, so it's not easily recorded. But I wouldn't mind paying a monthly fee that I pay for Netflix. But I don't want, like, I don't want 17 streaming services. I don't want to have Comixology and Marvel and DC and Image, because I really want to get all these other books too, right? Because I read a lot of these other comic companies, right? And I want one company to rule them all. And I know maybe we're just too new in the game and people are worried about their copyrights and whatnot, but I wouldn't mind paying Comixology or anyone. And why not Comixology? They're owned by Amazon. Everyone trusts Amazon. Why not Comixology having every book? You know what I mean? And being able to go back and read any of it and me paying a monthly fee. Maybe it's $20 a month, but I get to read everything. It's still cheaper than what you spend for comics on a comic week almost.
Yeah, so the way that I understand it, I've done Unlimited before, is it does have, so you've got comics from every publisher. You've got stuff from Marvel, DC, Image, Boom, Archie, everything, right? But you only have the first 10 issues of something. So, like, if you go to a series or whatever, like the first 5 or 10 issues will be part of the Unlimited. You can read those all you want, but then after that, you have to buy the individual issues or the graphic novels. In my personal experience, it's not worth the $10 I think it is a month, or $8 a month, because once I've read everything, that's it, right? And they're adding stuff here and there. There are different books that they add to the Unlimited catalog.
But what about current issues? Like the books that came out last Wednesday, can I read those next week?
Yeah, there's nothing for that. And it sucks that there's no like anthology series either that you can just pick up. Like if, I don't know, if there was like an anthology book that you could buy once a week for $5 or something, and it had, 4 or 5 stories in it, or if there was something online that you could do that, that would be cool. But yeah, there's nothing quite like Netflix for comics.
Oh man, disappointing.
Just one, guys. I'll be right back.
All right.
Any comic book video game stuff to talk about?
Not that I'm aware of, but I was going to ask Emmanuel about Aftershock and how the hell he came up with, or how he found that publisher. Because they did, so Aftershock was the story about the lady that went down the 9 levels of hell or whatever.
Oh yeah, I'm interested in that too.
And Animosity.
Because I would never have encountered that if he didn't
Yeah,
And I go for a lot of weird stuff, but some that one got by me.
Animosity is also Aftershock too. So the one where the animals gain
So
sentience.
yeah, so he's connected to them now.
Yeah, I had never heard of him before, and then I picked up that it was the same publisher. I wanted to ask him about it, but now he's gone.
I'm looking at aftershock.com to see if there's anything interesting and weird that I want to do again, but it's all weird, so I don't know if it's
Right.
interesting. There's nothing mainstream about any of these books apparently.
No.
So I re-upped DC streaming service.
I thought you were gonna drop it.
I was, but I didn't do it fast enough, and they got me.
So
And that's my fault.
they
Yeah,
got your
and
money
they
on the
got me
ad
for a
order.
year, right? So I'm gonna have to make sure and cancel a month before next time. But I think they only got me for like $5-6 a month,
Right. Okay.
and that's not bad. Uh, and and it's just gonna make me read more comics because I'll be damned if I don't get my money's worth.
Yeah. Are they still adding stuff to the DC universe?
Yeah, and they're adding
series?
it a little faster than they used to be. And now it's not 2 years behind anymore. Now it's less than 1 year behind.
That's
Uh,
that's the way the Marvel Unlimited is. It's about 6 months, depending on the book.
so they're getting there. They just don't have enough. It's once you've the same thing you said about Comixology. Once you could have read everything you sort of wanted to read, uh, uh, once I go back and watch all the original Superman movies and all the original Batmans and all the animated series, those that held up.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot after that, and there's still some gaps. Like there was just a Shazam animated series, and that's not on there.
Uh,
Right? And then where do you go to get that? Because if you can't go to DC streaming service to watch a DC superhero animated series, like think about The Watchmen,
right.
the comic, the because it's owned by DC now, right?
Yeah.
That a motion comic that should be there, right? Red Sun motion comic that should be there. There's a lot of things that DC did that interest me. On the Marvel side, there's some streaming stuff that I have never seen from Marvel that probably has been out forever that I got to go and do some deep cuts and find. But
Yeah.
Spider-Man is Amazing Friends do not hold up.
No. So, Emmanuel, how did you find Aftershock Comics?
I don't recall.
Because you've run in
Really
two
don't.
series now that were really intriguing. The one about the lady going through the cycles of hell, and then Animosity. That's
Yes.
also Aftershock.
You know what? I don't know. I think it may have to do with just a Google search.
Okay.
I sometimes Google search like comics that have great exposition, comics that have great internal dialogue, or whatever the case may be. So I just Google it from that perspective, and then
Okay.
so I think I should just attribute it to Google.
That your Googling skills are good then, because you came up with a couple of winners. So.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen. Any final words before we sign off for the day?
Be excellent to each other.
And
Despite Matt's pick of the day, I am still to this day, January 4th, 2020, not an X-Men fan.
and on that note, I will try to find a freaking X-Men book that will get Emmanuel
Challenge accepted.
into it.